Hello, Anne Arundel County. This is Anthony Bynum, host of Don't Get Fooled Again. In our show, we spotlight all that is positive about Anne Arundel County. The name of our production company is the Glen Burnie Players. So in episode 4, we have a lot on tap. Let's go through the rundown. We start off with our first segment, Prayer for Our Schools. This is followed by the Backpack Giveaway Special. Third, we celebrate Friday night Glen Burnie style. We then have an interview with an outstanding woman. Her name is Janie McGee. Jack Turner then flies us over Anne Arundel County with his drone. Next, we introduce a new segment. It's called The Host Corner. Then we introduce a new character. His name is Auerbach. Now, Auerbach is an alien who comes from a distant galaxy. He comes to Anne Arundel County because he's curious about us. We'll go to a wrap-up after that. So everybody, relax. Make some popcorn and enjoy. On Saturday, August 27th, just a few days prior to the beginning of the new school year, the Dr. Reverend Kenneth Moore of John Wesley Church of Glen Burnie led a small group of church members in a prayer service over at the Glen Burnie High School. This prayer was designed specifically to ask the Lord for His protection for our children. I was there. On Saturday, August 27th, I observed a group of people gathered at the block of 7229 Baltimore Annapolis Boulevard. I saw backpacks. I saw smiles. I pulled over to find out what was going on. It turned out that the Christ Life Church was holding an annual event. They were providing school supplies for any child to help them with the upcoming school year. I saw the nice backpacks. I saw the writing utensils. I saw the smiles and the lively conversation. I saw hope. All of this because this group of people from Glen Burnie, this group of churchgoers from Glen Burnie, wanted to make a difference. There are Friday nights, and there are Friday nights Glen Burnie style. On July 22nd, I had the opportunity to live that experience. First, I visited the Glen Burnie Town Center. The Glen Burnie Improvement Association, also known as GBIA, sponsors the Friday Night Concert Series. They run for a month beginning in July. On this night, the local group Cowbell performed. They knocked our socks off. The lead singer was very proud of his Glen Burnie roots. Just across the street was the Glen Burnie Carnival. Now, there were some changes for this year. The first was the name. It was called the Jolly Show Carnival. I was able to find out at the July meeting of the GBIA that the executive committee meets in January to start the planning of the carnival. The same carnival that was first held in 1908. Unfortunately, I was unable to make that one. The committee needs many volunteers to make the event a success. There are lots of vendors that must be contacted in order to maintain family-friendly pricing. With the ongoing COVID restrictions, it was too much to meet those requirements. The Jolly Show, which already provided rides and games for the event, they were able to step in and fill that void. As you can see from both of these events, on that night, the town was rocking.
And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend us still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Spell 3 times well to celebrate this day. This course is run There you go.
Hello, Anne Arundel County. We have the privilege of having a great guest today. Her name is Janie McGee. She's going to tell us a little bit about herself. I think you're going to enjoy this. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. My hat's crooked. Hold on one second. I don't know what that's about.
Your hat looks great.
It's a hot mess. Hold on. Okay, I got it. There we go. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, as Mr. Rogers would say.
It is a beautiful day. We learned so much from him.
Hey, I love your studio. I love it. Tell me about the painting in the back, because I just absolutely love it.
Thank you. That is called Rocky Mountain Sunday Morning. And my folks were from Virginia, West Virginia. So, you know, you spend every vacation down somewhere at grandma's house. And so we used to go down to Rocky Mountain when they had this church service every year. And it was just an unbelievable experience. So it was out in the mountain somewhere, and the old people would get the beat started on the ground. It's called shape note singing, I believe. And it was just an magical experience. So I started this series called Rocky Mountain, and I've got one of also called the Mothers of the Church. So all of them are filmed outside this little church down there in Rocky Mountain, West Virginia.
Wow. Wow. You know, growing up, I was a big fan of the Waltons. They never really said where they did that show. I just thought it was West Virginia, but I don't actually know. I know that's probably a side issue, but that's what you think about when you think of West Virginia. You think of just outdoors and woods and down home people, you know?
Yeah. When I grew up, I thought everything was near Mayberry. So that's, I didn't know. I was from Columbus, Ohio, so it is what it is. Yeah, because you don't even think about that. It's like, oh yeah, it's Mayberry, you know, yeah, wherever that's at. So because that everything on TV was either Andy Griffin or Hee Haw.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Well,
Those were my favorite paintings, though. It was just a joy. The actual photograph was from three little girls standing out of a church in Harlem, I believe it was. And I take old photographs and I convert them to wherever my mind takes me at. It's never the same place. And that's where it really came from.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, you know, when we first met, I just kind of happened to reach out to you next door. And one of the first things that I saw when trying to kind of communicate with you was this fantastic website. As a matter of fact, if we're able to work it, we'll probably try to bring some of that in during the interview, in the post-production part of the interview. But tell me a little bit about that website. How did you bring that together?
I built it over probably 6 months, but I have over thousands of pieces of artwork. I've been doing art for about 45 years, maybe a little bit more than that. I had my first show when I was 15 years old. So a lot of the artwork that I do comes from old photographs. I document Black history from 1619 to about 1960. And so that's a combination of art, and I get kind of pinned sometimes because I really don't have one type of style. My art is what I feel. It's where I am. It's a church lady series, which is a women shouting and praising God. I've got a new series called To the Moon and Back, which I found over 100 pictures of people who took photographs back in the 1940s and 50s with the moon in the background. So all depends on where I'm at. One of the things I think that's been really rewarding of being an artist was in 2005, I had a show at the National Black Women's Congress. And you know, I didn't have no money. I wasn't rolling like that. So they wanted me there so bad they gave me the table space free of charge. So I go there, I set up, and I'm talking about like Hillary Clinton, Barbara Bush, Bethune, Hunter, all these amazing African American women, and diversity was there. Long story short, I set my stuff up, and Dick Gregory, he was cantankerous about something somebody did that day, so I didn't really talk to anybody. I'm not sure he was in the mood, just put you like that. But Dick Gregory came in there and his family, but this old lady came up to me, And she started asking me about my artwork. It was like, I had a painting called The Sit-In. So I go over there and I show her, my artwork, and, her and her son. I was explaining to them about the piece was of African Americans sitting at a lunch counter, and people were spitting on them and throwing stuff from behind, and just horrendously attacking them. And she wanted me to ship her the painting. So I go over to my table and she gives me her information to ship it like in about 2 weeks. It was Rosa Parks.
Oh my goodness.
I was blown away. And her and her son Raymond, I gave them information in Michigan. And the way my life goes is really weird because I tap into stuff before it happens. I emailed her on a Friday night, and she literally died Saturday morning, the next day in the morning. And it was the last email and first I'd ever sent her. And so I eventually sold the piece, but what that showed me was I was on the right track in telling my story, our story. But I will say this now, let you go on. I try to do art that if you're Black, white, Asian, Chinese, whatever, you're going to see a piece of humanity. You're going to see a piece of yourself in it. I'm not pinned down to, oh, you're this kind of artist. Even though I use our story, I want someone to weep, to cry, to find hope, to find something positive by something that I took from hundreds of years ago, brought it forward, and it put some emotion and understanding in it. So I'm really, that's where my heart is. I was really excited to meet her, and it was life-changing.
Wow. That's a fantastic story. Absolutely fantastic. And you didn't really know who she was. You were just having a conversation with a senior person, and it turned into a fantastic experience.
She didn't look like the Rosa that got off the bus. She had a little age on her, so there was no way it couldn't have been anybody's Nana. I don't know. I didn't know whose Nana it was. It was like, oh my God, and just I met so many fantastic people. I worked with Clarence Shiver, one of the original Tuskegee Airmen. Thomas Blackshear, who's a world-renowned artist, was one of my mentors. Wallace Conway, the first African-American curator for the Smithsonian. Chester Commodore, who was the first Black cartoonist for the Chicago Defender. I had a TV show out in Colorado, me and my husband on PBS, and I actually have videotapes of all these people that I've not done anything with, of them telling me their life story. Chester, real quick, his grandmother in Chicago had a halfway house off the Chitlin Circuit. So Cab Calloway and, Mr. Bojangles and Nicholas Brothers. And he told me all these fantastic stories of people that would come in there and sleep because they weren't allowed to stay in the hotels for white people. Yeah. So they would come to their house off the Chitlin Circuit. And my uncle, who played with James Brown, Temptations, Gladys Knight, B.B. King, Albert P., he told me stories about being on the Chitlin Circuit. One last story, he was in the Memphis, I believe it was, Nashville, the week that Martin Luther King had gotten assassinated. And he was on tour with the Mighty Clouds of Joy and the Staple Singers. And he said that whole week, he said he saw rats kick a cat out of a trash can. He said the whole week was just restless. And that morning he came off of the set with the Staple Singers, and Martin Luther King had passed away, like I think upstairs. He was in a downstairs hotel room. So just life is funny to me how you meet so many fascinating people where it will take you to.
We're going to have to step back for a second.
Okay.
For two reasons. One, not all of our viewers are going to be familiar with the concept that led to the Green Book. And number two, not all of our viewers are going to be familiar with the Chitlin Circuit. So if you could, talk to me a little bit about both of those things.
Well, the Green Book was really where African Americans had a book or understanding, sometimes written or physical, where it told them where the sundown towns were and where not to go. Which surprisingly, I just saw a video of a guy on Instagram who was in Texas and was in the sundown town. And I found out also there are 5 states that still have slavery to be voted for on the dockets coming up in November. We're still recovering from a lot of that stuff. The Chitlin Circuit was where a lot of Cap Calloway, Nicholas Brothers, and Lena Horne, when they performed, they weren't allowed to stay in a lot of the mainstream places. This probably went on to probably the late 1950s, coming up to 68, before some of the civil rights movement really got bills and policies put in place. But they had to stay at side clubs and nightclubs and people's houses and so forth too. And one of them was an enriching experience, I'm sure, but also too, it showed how far we've come as a country. Even some of the places that my uncle played with were, he was in Switzerland with Albert King and B.B. King and Gladys Knights, and I guess there were three pimps. He always have to count them out, but he was on tour with a lot of people, and just the stories that he told me. Albert King, B.B. King's brother, had talked about how they used to go down to B.B. King's house and look in the window because his father never owned that part of the family, and he would get and see this food. And so one time they were out and they were eating somewhere on the Chitlin Circuit, and Albert wanted to make sure everybody ate. And my uncle said, Albert said, well, we don't have enough food. And then he turned back around and said, some get some won't get some, but we'll provide for everybody. And that line stuck with my uncle for many, many years on making sure everybody was equal, just from Albert King.
That's
so
fantastic.
That's where that came from.
I have to give you a spoiler alert here.
Okay.
I saw Cab Calloway. He played Ogden Hall when I was down in Hampton, and that was a treat. Minnie the Moocher. Everyone knows that song from the Blues Brothers, but he was quite an accomplished individual. Not only did he have this presence, but he wrote a book about all the language that came out of the bebop era. He was an accomplished individual. I think his daughter might still be around.
I know his grandson and I think hits me up all the time on Instagram because I do a lot of pictures of Cab Calloway. But also the lady who played on Good Times, Morona, the one who was the neighbor upstairs.
Oh, Alona.
Yeah, that was his daughter.
What?
That's Cab Calloway's daughter. She just passed away a year ago.
Oh my goodness. She sang the theme. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. What opportunities. I was gonna go in one direction, but I'd be remiss not to talk about some of this theme music. So she sang the theme for Good Times. Mm-hmm. Lenny Kravitz, Roxy Roker.
Yes.
How was her name pronounced? Roxy. I forget how her last name was pronounced.
I think you got it right, Roker.
But she sang the song for Movement Up. These were fantastic musical scores. Absolutely fantastic. The 70s had fantastic musical themes. It's 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And I read an article somewhere in there. It might have been the 90s. I'm not sure when. But some television executive types figured that as opposed to 45 seconds from the beginning and 45 seconds at the end, if we can just cut that to 15 and 15, that's another 30 seconds of advertising. But look what was lost. Lost.
Yeah. This is so funny. The theme to Good Times, I grew up on that. And Ernie Barnes, who was the artist who did all the artwork, he recently passed away. I think one of his last paintings, it just sold for 25 million, I believe. The art that they used on Good Times from Ernie Barnes. I know that's a lot of cheddar, but if you listen to it, moving on up to the east side, standing in a chow line, if you listen to the words unemployment, it's like it says, but we're just looking for good times. And I thought about that one. That says standing in a chow line, easy crime and ripoff. It's like, okay, we're singing about this. But then when you look at like hip hop nowadays about, put them in a body bag, all this kind of stuff, is like we have such a range as people where we are. And I always believe that if every stereotype, there's some truth. So there were people standing in the chow line. There were easy layoff and rip-offs. You have to go. She was singing what was really going on, It got us where we got to as Black people. We still got a ways to go.
Wow. That's just... I love talking to different people about their perspectives on life, because I think there's about 8 billion people living on the earth, something like that. And I don't know how many in the States nowadays, because it's kind of hard to really figure that number. But they say Anne Arundel County is 600,000. So that's 600,000 different perspectives,
Yes.
And it's good when it's good, but it's not always good. So how do we navigate? How do we navigate each day so that at the end of the day, we said, you know what, we did some good and we got some value out of that day? I guess that's a larger question. We probably can't answer it here, but why not? Give it a try.
I think that life to me is like being a wrestler or somebody who works in the gym. You go in there and you can lift maybe 50 pounds, and then 100 pounds, and then 300 pounds. And I don't think people sometimes reflect and look back that, but when you look back behind you and see the way that you've come and how much you've been able to lift in life, it makes us stronger. And each one of us, our own personal stories, is about our workout in the gym. It's about being able to handle 50 or 100 or 300 pounds. And if I saw this preacher who said that, where does it say in the Bible that God doesn't give you more than you can bear? But he doesn't give you more than you can bear, because when you get to 50, you've been prepared to get to 60. When you get to 60, you've been prepared to get to 80. And the more weight and the more stronger that we are, that's how we get through life. And then the beautiful thing is that then we go spot other people. We go, let me get you through this. I'll hold it. I'll help you get through this. And that's the whole purpose of life. People get into politics and this and that, and we've got so much going on. But, loving people and being able to help us to carry our own weight and then to help another brother or sister get through, that's really the meaning of life. Because, like you said, am I my brother's keeper? Yeah. And my sisters. I am. And I think that's the whole purpose of life. I have a tendency to put on freaking Wonder Woman capes where I want to solve all the world's problems. If I see someone struggling or someone walking, I'm always wondering, well, gee, I hope someone get them a ride, or if I got a little bit of money to help a homeless person, because people have done that for me. And I think we have to pass the baton, the blessings, be contagious with our giving. There's so much hatred and anger in the world for no reason. But if we could just imagine if the intensity of hatred and anger was 10, if we can turn that to love and hope and positivity. And that's what I hope my art and my books and my writing, and I told you I'm old school b-boy, my dancing, try to turn all this into something positive. That's what I think it's about right now. I'm 60 years old, but I got a little something left. We'll see what happens.
Hey, the tank, you got the good stuff in the tank.
Oh yeah, I remember Tank back in the day. We actually, the NASA, the astronauts, we were drinking it because it had been to the moon. We all got a little tank in our tank.
Well, Janie, it's you made my day. I want to thank you so much for taking some time. Do you have anything else you want to add? Any closing thoughts for our viewers?
Well, I think that just if I'm gonna spot somebody, let me spot somebody like this. I just came through stage 4 endometrial cancer, and it was almost a year when I went to the hospital, and they told me that after all the tests and stuff, they said that I wasn't going to make it, and that I should call my pastor and my chaplain and whatever. I don't know why they didn't mention a rabbi. Anything's possible, but they just told me to call my pastor. And, I sat there with my husband. I cried, and then the doctor came back in the room, and I said, "I'm not ready to go. I've got stuff to do. I've got people to love. I've got a family still to raise, and I'm going to fight." And my weight got down to 105 pounds, long story short. And they said, well, they couldn't do surgery until I got to 125. So they put a PICC line, which was this huge, big bag of nutrients. I had to take that for several months until I got up to 125. And then in January 31st, I had 10 hours of surgery. And all of my uterus, my small intestine, large intestines, my bladder, and lymph nodes are all fused together. So I had 10 hours where they had to take everything apart, and I had a fistula, and it was just a nightmare. But I woke up, and I remember, the long story short, and I was sitting in the chair, and I climbed back into bed, and I was tired. I was thinking about, what does all this mean? Like, you want to say something cliche like life is too short, you got to love yourself. But the thing that came to me was, I didn't realize I was worth fighting for. I've always been extroverted but introverted, but always quiet into myself. But I didn't know how much I loved me, and I loved life, and I loved family, that I had to fight for me. And so I want to encourage anyone who's going through cancer or any type of breast cancer or diseases or lung, whatever you're facing, don't give up on you. Fight for you. Fight for your family. Everything the doctors told me to do, chemo, I had hair down to here. It wasn't a weave. It wasn't a bundle. It was mine. All my hair fell out. I went through all kinds of side effects. I recently came through surgery, took the ileostomy bag off, and it's been hard. Some days I cry, but not because I'm sad. I'm thankful when I see the birds and the clouds in the sky. Listen, we're all going to live to 80, 90, or do a Moses where it's 124, but we're all going to check out of here at some point. But you got to make the best of life. If you're an artist, paint. Don't worry if anyone buys it. If you're a musician, if you're a singer, sing. If you're in a corporate executive, make the best of who you are. But fight for you. Fight for other people. Be contagious. But don't give up on life. And I think that I see so many every day. I just saw a young girl commit suicide, and before she jumped off the bridge, wrote a long test. And I don't think people realize, even in that, how selfish suicide can be. You don't think about what people you left behind or what God had left for you, what life had to say. Life is worth living. We're losing people every day from just wellness. Go to a therapist, talk to your family, get through that if that's your battle, if it's not cancer. But don't give up on you. Just keep fighting. And that's been my whole life, not from only being in the Army and being a veteran and, from all of that. Just keep fighting. And that's one positive thing I would tell someone. I'm a living witness that God still works miracles, whether it's through doctors, whatever. I just had to not give up on me. So that's my word of encouragement for everyone that's out there.
Fantastic. I can't say anything more than that. Thank you for everything. I'm going to go ahead and shut things down. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, and thank you too. You're amazing. You're a legend. I appreciate you. God bless you and your wife and your family. And keep watching those old movies I'm sending you to.
We'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that later. God bless you. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Hello, this is Anthony, and we introduce the Host Corner. The first subject, the role of gift cards in scams. Gift cards have been around since the early 1990s when the Neiman Marcus Company, which is a luxury department store, introduced them in 1994. My father used to call that company Neiman Marcus. The concept is actually rather simple. You buy a plastic card with a certain amount of cash value, which is redeemable at the point of sale. Now, a scam artist's goal is to fool someone into doing something that they would not normally do. They use deception to get a victim to voluntarily turn over their hard-earned money. There are lots of different scenarios, such as calling an elderly person in the middle of the night to convince them that a family member is in trouble. This is where the gift cards come in. That same elderly person is asked to go to a store or a pharmacy to buy these preloaded gift cards. The scammer asks the victim to read the vital information from the back of those gift cards to him or her. Once that's done, the scammer very easily redeems the value on those gift cards. Now, gift cards are a very quick way of redeeming cash value. Unfortunately, since the victim voluntarily turns over this vital information, it is not a compensatable event. So, be careful.
Anne Arundel Stories, Episode 1, Auerbach.
In a galaxy far from ours, there was a green and blue planet. The inhabitants called their planet Gaiaton. The people referred to themselves as the Nebulars. The Nebulars were advanced beings. They had mastered space flight many, many years ago.
In a small town, a young Nebularian, who was known as Auerbach, kept himself busy thinking about adventure. He was thinking about building his own spaceship, as he had seen others have done this in the past. So what would he do with that spaceship? He could leave his own universe and go to distant galaxies.
One night, young Arback saw himself in a strange new place. He was not alone, as he brought his trusted companion, a Rog, named Red, with him.
The next day, Auerbach spoke to his parental units and was encouraged to follow his dreams. He soon began to work on his ship. He worked with others until its completion. Now, where would he go? He studied this for some time. He would travel many parsecs to a planet which was also blue and green. That planet? Earth.
The day came and off young Arback went. He brought his three-legged companion, Red, with him for company and his trusted learning device, which he called the Havlicek. Now, Havlicek could interfere with other technologies, navigate the ship, and, if necessary, steal the ball.
Boston only has a 1-point lead. Greer's putting the ball on a play. He gets it out deep, and Havlicek steals it. Over the San Joe. Havlicek stole the ball. It's all over.
The course was plotted through the galaxies until Earth was found. The Havlicek worked correctly, guiding Auerbach's ship first through his home galaxy, a second, a third, a fourth, until eventually the sun in the middle of the galaxy where Earth was located. It was a glorious ride.
The ship entered Earth's atmosphere. Auerbach chose the North American continent and placed the coordinates in the Havlicek. The ship eventually landed in a place the local geography referred to as Maryland. He waxed. What next? He found out the place the ship landed on was called Anne Arundel County. He thought, what an interesting name. And how did it come to be?
Well, that was fun. As I've stated, our goal here is to tell the story of our great county, Anne Arundel County. If you would like to participate in the show in any way, either by being interviewed or maybe perhaps you have something that you want to have us air about Anne Arundel County, don't hesitate to contact us at aabynum@yahoo.com. Again, that's aabynum@yahoo.com. So until next time, this is your friend, Anthony, for Don't Get Fooled Again. Take care.